Hi, Filmatics. Welcome back to part two with Greg Kukowski, and we are just got into a groove talking about his directing, and so let's go follow his journey, how he became this wonderful, fantastic director who just did um season 4, right, for Ryan's Mystery Playdate, right, Greg?
Season 4, yeah. Yep.
Okay, so
Yep.
yeah, welcome back, Greg.
How you doing? What's up?
Yeah, so you were saying when you came to Los Angeles, you moved to Venice by the beach with your what color was your Mustang?
Oh, they had a cream colored back then.
Oh, nice.
Not quite white, not quite yellow. It was kind of in between. Maybe canary white. I don't know if it's quite canary yellow. Mine, it was more like canary faded and a little bit dirty. But it was a wonderful car for the time, just to get around in. I didn't know anybody when I came out here, other than a guy I knew from Dallas, and he was a grip. And his goal was to be an actor. And so we were both out here with high aspirations. We both had some stints in performance on stage. But the thing for me always was I just wanted to be on sets. I didn't care what it was, you know. I just loved the energy of it. I didn't want to be in one of the more boring parts of the set. I didn't want to be a driver. Nothing's wrong with being a teacher. That's wonderful. I wanted to be around the camera. And so that's why I spent time as a stuntman, as an actor, as a cameraman, and I said a long career as an assistant director. I just knew that the middle was where I wanted to be. And so after I came out, it was interesting because when you come out to Los Angeles, there's no like, okay, here's the address of where your career starts. It's over on Sunset Boulevard. Go to the second. None of that exists. It really is a network. And if you don't know anybody, it's going to take you some time to figure that network out. Now, you might get lucky. I often say, and said it back then, your first 6 months here, you're brand new. So everybody wants to help you. After about 6 months, you're old news. Somebody else is new. And they're going to help them. And they'll do it right in front of you. And like, what about me? You know, they'll go, and they're like, yeah, but you've been here. You've had your chance. So there's a sort of certain newness to it. You know, casting directors, production friends, whatever. So it's kind of a golden time because the city's new. It's your first hike up Runyon Canyon, your first walk down Venice Boulevard, your first time downtown and seeing Disney Center. All of that's brand new, right? You've probably never been to Chinatown. You've never had somebody take you to Monrovia so you can get great dim sum on a Sunday in one of those dim sum palaces. So, you know, you've never been to Rodeo Boulevard. But with that in mind, after about 6 months, the shine's off. And now you really have to start making money. You spent your parents' money, they got you out here, whatever you saved. And you got to start doing it. And so I, you know, did everything. You know, I had been a waiter in Dallas, and I came out here, and I didn't want to be a waiter out here. I thought that was sort of, it's too stereotypical. I didn't want to call them, yeah, I'm waiting tables in California. And they go, great. You know, be an extra next and search. Here's your coffee, Mr. Ewing. Matt Damon says, thank you. And that was my moment of glory. And then they cut me out and you just see my hand and my dialogue's gone. So I said, I'll be a bartender. And so I bartended. And I would bartend private parties. And that was so much fun because like I got to bartend one of the Batman premieres and I had Michael Keaton sitting in my bar in the back and he was just not happy. And I don't know, he was just whatever. And so I'm sitting there serving Michael Keaton alcohol. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing. And I'm on the big square of the old Batman movie set over at Warner Brothers. So I got to be on the Warner Brothers lot. And then through some people I had met through whatever, I ended up as a PA on a TV show called Adam 12 Dragnet. Every 2 weeks they'd switch shows and they would shoot all of them. They'd shoot like 2 or 3 seasons. It was craziness. And so I got to be in the office for a while and then I got to be on the set for a while. And on the last week of the last show, we had 3 days of shooting. And they had an entire season of lost shots they had picked up. They had actors coming in. It was not just 3 days of work, but they didn't want to admit to anybody that it was the last, that we only had 12 hours to shoot or that it was going to take longer to shoot what they wrote. So on the first day, our call time was 7 a.m. We wrapped at 3 in the morning. We were back on set at 11 a.m. So 8 hours turnaround.
Oh, wow.
We worked from 11 a.m. on Tuesday to 5 a.m. in the morning or 6 a.m. in the morning on Wednesday. And then when Wednesday, we worked from 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock until Thursday night or something crazy, like 20. That's the last day was 27 hours.
Wow.
And at around hour 22, we finally got to our original call sheet of work that we were supposed to shoot for our episode. And I looked over at the second AD. I was just a PA. And I was just energized. I was excited. I'm on a film set. They're giving me a walkie, and they want me to bring somebody and do this, and I didn't care. I just, because I could call them and go, I'm on a film set. I was that delusional. And the second AD falls asleep in his chair, and pranks were pretty high at that point. So I started burying him in wads of paper, like just balled up trash. It was clean, as far as he knows. Anyway, we got up to about his shoulders. He's still asleep. I mean, he was done. He was toast. I don't think he'd slept in 4 days. And so then I handcuffed his arm to whatever. And I turned to the special effects man. This old crusty guy's been around since I think they invented film. And he's laughing and he's watching. And I said, hey, I wonder how much that guy makes. And he goes, oh, he's DGA. I go, oh, right, DGA Directors Guild. Didn't really know much about it. I said, I wonder what he makes. He goes, well, we calculated it out. He got his day's pay because he didn't have turnaround between when he wrapped set and came back to set. Whatever hourly rate he was making when he left set would continue as if he never went home. So since he went home making double day, so a double day rate, so every hour was 4 hours of work. When he came back to work, he picked up at every hour was 4 hours of work. But by his fourth hour of the day, he was making double. So every hour was a day's pay.
Wow.
For 20 hours. So that day, he made thousands and thousands of dollars. And I said, oh, man, I wonder. And then the production manager came over, a cheap bastard. I was going to become friends with, but he was a cheap bastard. And he said, all right, all you PAs, you're going to get an extra $100. And I thought I was rich. I was going to make $250 $300. I thought I was rich. And then I realized, wait a minute. The guy I'm burying in trash is going to make $4,000. I want his job. And so I then went out and just declared I'm an assistant director. And that was it. So I second AD'd for a very short period of time. I realized two things. One of them is I'm not a good second. I'm not a good second AD. And I want to be a first AD. And so I then just declared I'm a first AD. Back in the 90s, there used to be at AFM, people would go there and they'd make a poster. And on that poster would have Michael Dudikoff or some martial arts actor or somebody, whatever, would be on the poster. And it'd be, dashing pose, girl, semi-nude, guy with a gun, and a bad guy in the background. Robert Davi in the background. And then they'd go there and sell that film to the different markets around the world. This is in Santa Monica, that this film market was. Or they'd come out of Cannes or whatever the different film festivals that were around, film markets that were around. They'd come out, these producers would come out of there like Menachem Golan of Golan Globus or any of these other filmmakers. And they'd have maybe $1 million, $1.1 million to make a film. They then come back to a production manager and go, okay, you have $600,000. Go make this movie. $200,000 goes to the poster actor. $100,000 goes to the famous actor like, Michael Caine. He'll show for one day, get $100,000. And the rest of the money went to the producers and to us to make the film. And so in that low budget, non-union world, guys like me were perfect. And so I learned how to run film sets, how to direct in that space. I got fortunate. I connected with some commercial companies. And so I wasn't just making grungy little crappy projects. I actually learned how to do higher end stuff. And so it was a blend back then because you do a movie, some commercials in between. Somebody might call you for a big music video. Music video budgets back then were quite substantial. And because of my action background and knowledge of that, I got to do work on like some big action stuff in some music videos. And work on some bigger films, done some westerns, things like that. But that was my transition. And the lesson that I tell people when I speak around the city, because I speak at Loyola and USA, different places around, and outreach programs around the country, was just at a film festival as a keynote speaker. And the thing that I tell people is if you're going to get in this business, you need a network. You need patience. You need good friends and supportive people. And you need a way to make a living because you may make not a lot of money for quite a while. But the upside of it is, if you can break through that sort of lower tier of existence, money starts to cover the abuse that you're going to get from the work. Because that's the other side of it was. And one of the things that sort of was a life lessons for me when I was a musician was the guy, when I was still being a musician in Dallas, that I was studying with, was a wonderful trumpet player named Larry Engstrom. Maybe the most talented trumpet player I ever saw play, short of, some of the, guys in the major symphonies. But he was playing, and I was like, wow, you're a great musician. You're a studio musician. You play in the symphony. You're an amazing jazz trumpet player. And you're still playing weddings on Saturday and Sunday. So what does that say about a future lifestyle there? Now, I didn't know about studio musician work here in Los Angeles. It wasn't in my wheelhouse. It was in Dallas. And I'm sure there's guys there that make a living, but it's a very small few group of men, and they're for women, and they're very, very talented.
Yeah, like the owner of Vibrato, right? The owner of Vibrato is
yes.
a very famous jazz musician, trumpet player, right? What's his name?
Absolutely.
I forget his name, but my friend works there.
So for me, I started applying to the film business, my lessons from the music world, my lessons from live music, being on performance with rock bands and staging all of that and taking things on tour. All of that was this sort of slow evolution that brought me from over here, and without realizing it, all of a sudden, without making a direct commitment, I found myself doing exactly what I wanted to do, because I kept being drawn to the light of the being on a film set. Somebody asked me once, do I want to go from being a first AD to a production manager? I said, no, I want to direct. I don't want to go that route. I'm not interested in crunching numbers, and I understand it. I have done it. I've produced. I will continue to produce. But as a primary goal of sitting in a room and doing hot costs and budgets, that's not filmmaking to me. But the knowledge of that and knowing the value of that has sort of shaped my thinking in how all this works. I put it like this. There's a saying in the business, good, fast, and cheap. Pick two, right? Well, I think it's wrong. I think it's story, time, and money. Because first you need a good story. Nobody wants to make a cheap story or a bad story or just a good story. You want to make something that's amazing. Good has no meaning. Time, because you have how much time to do this? How much time in your life can you commit to a particular project? And that's a value that is not about speed. You can take your time. Speed is relative, right? And the key thing it always comes back to is, to me, is script and story. It was always about the music. It was always about, if you can have the greatest musicians in the world in a room and the song isn't great, it's not a hit. It doesn't play. People don't remember it. You don't sing the hum. You don't hum the thing. But I can go da 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 da. Everybody knows Beethoven. And move on. Scene. Thank you very much. If I can say Streets with No Name, everybody knows that song. There's certain hooks and things that all go. So that craft is hugely important to me, to understand the dynamic of what's really and genuinely important. Does that make sense?
Yes. And do you still play the trumpet by any chance?
I do. I do, and I mainly play mostly piano now. The hard part about playing a trumpet, besides playing a trumpet, is that at the end of the day, you need to spend a committed amount of time every day to keep your lip in shape.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and so it's not like it's like any skill. If you played at a high level, coming off of it 5% might as well be 100%. So while I still play, I don't play like I did. I actually think in some ways, from a musical standpoint, I'm much better player than I was, because I'm more mature. I've got more life experience. I see into the story of the music. I've listened to 40, 30 more years of music than I had at that point in my life. And so that seeps into what you do. I've sat in the Louvre and looked at amazing art. So that has to affect how you play music. You know what I mean?
It's okay. We got Herb Albert. But we need you as a director, Greg.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in music, as far as as far as a part of movies and TV, the sound is everything. You can watch a movie and nobody has lines. I mean, I think what Arnold Schwarzenegger in some of his early films had like 15 lines. Come with me if you want to live. You know, okay, everybody else talks for a while. I mean, look at the movie Terminator. How many lines in that movie does he have? You know, like 10? And that movie changed everything.
And short sentences, like short, calm.
Very short.
Calm.
Very, very short. You know, because, well, you know, that's just what it is. You know, that was written perfectly for somebody at that point in his career like Arnold. You know, so anyway, you know, to me, music is music and sound. You can make a bad looking film, but as long as you can hear the people in it. What was that movie that was out years ago? The one that was black and white, like found footage stuff, all that silliness. And it was Blair Witch.
Oh, okay.
You remember Blair Witch?
Yes.
So with Blair Witch, to me, yeah, that's a great example of you don't need great visuals to tell a story in the sense of perfect, pristine, clean. You must be able to hear the actors. You must be able to know, because your mind, if it's detached from sound, has a problem. It's a perceptual thing. You know, if you've ever had the luxury of going to the Emmy Theater over in the Saban Theater over in North Hollywood and listening to the Dolby sound system there, or whatever it is, the Atmos Theater sound system, it's just life-changing. You know, the image is amazing, the image is stunning, IMAX level quality, but the sound there just destroys.
I love it.
Absolutely destroys. It's so awesome. You know, anyway, so there you go.
Yeah, and I just had an Oscar special here on Film Addicts with the award-winning sound team from Formos Group, Charlie Campanella and Eric Basta, that won for Dune, the movie Dune. So it was a real treat for me, Greg. That was I was like a little kid in a candy store. I was smiling for days, like just to be invited there. It was awesome. And so talking about that, so you have visuals, because movies are visuals and sound. So speaking of, since you're director, you know I'm going to ask this question. Can you share a favorite movie scene and go over a moving shot with us? So that like one of your favorites?
Sure. There's so many. One of the ones, you know, some of it's very simple, and I'll go to one of my favorite films of all time. There's a movie called Patton, right? Patton was made at the same time they were making the movie MASH. Now, with the movie MASH, Ring Lardner had written the script, goofy film, $2 million, right? Sort of satire about Korea, which was really a commentary on Vietnam. Patton comes out, and it's supposed to be a very huge film commenting on this amazing general and to build upon his legend and tell this story. And then George C. Scott was amazing in it, you know, Oscar level performance, of course. So you have two different approaches to filmmaking, two different scripts, two different commentaries, two wars that were back to back, right? One glorifying the ideal of the ideal warrior, the leader who stands up, who comes through tragedy, his own maybe self-manifested tragedies, and comes out on top with George C. Scott. And with that film, there's a scene at the beginning, which is a sort of fantasy based upon a speech he wrote in his biography, a biography about George C. Scott, about General Patton. And he's standing on a stage. He's got his full uniform, dress, everything, Jodhpur riding crop, just magnificent. And he's standing in front of an American flag that's the size of the sound stage. He's up on a platform, so the camera's down below, like you're the troops watching him. And in a cheap film, or in a lot of filmmakers, a lot of directors would just have him stand there and have the camera and have the crew, and we'd be watching and he'd deliver the speech. They brought in real troops and put them in the audience there. You never saw them. You hear them responding. You hear them standing at attention. You know, the boots on the ground, the whole thing. And you see him looking at them. And what that manifests in me is a director who cares about his actor, because he knows that the eyes are the window to what's really happening. When the eyes aren't happening, you can't tell what's happening here. And that lesson still plays today. If you have somebody needing to talk to somebody off camera, put the other actor there if you can. There are always stories about one actor who will never do off-camera performances. Well, that's bullshit. That's bullpoo. Even when you see like Jeff Goldblum looking up at a dinosaur, there's a guy with a tennis ball there. So you have this big, magnificent film. Now, in the movie, they needed to shoot an army attacking the American army at the it was a Kasserine. I forget the movie. It was the first big battle that Patton won against Rommel's troops, and in that you see the army coming at you, shot in Spain. They only had enough money for one army. So you see in this direction the German army, and then they would readjust them, and they'd be the American army. Right? Because to put two sets of soldiers out there is expensive. Sometimes it might be an American tank made to look like a German tank. So you had to cheat all these things. But in all of these scenes, as watching, you would never know that. You'll never know that there's a trick that the actual Russian government learned to do when they would do their parades that we would do. You're like behind me, you see a plane come by, and then circle around, and it'd be another plane, and you think you have a lot of planes, but in the vision of the thing, it's the same thing. The same lessons apply to forced perspective and to cheating background and to making the littlest of things look big. If you do your research, you'll discover that and I've been on the stage, I shot on the stage where they shot Casablanca, and there's a scene at the end of the movie where Rick is talking to forget her name in the film, it doesn't matter, Bogart, and they're talking, and you see the airplane in the background ready to take off. Let's shot on a soundstage. They didn't get a plane there. They made a scale model plane. They had very short actors. Everything's forced perspective. So you think it's in the distance. There's fog. There's a wet down. You can't really tell where you are. But the plane was probably 20 feet long. It wasn't a real plane.
Oh, wow.
Forced perspective. Everything is a cheat. Everything that you see in a film and on TV is a lie. Nothing that is the truth. And that includes the news. And I'm going to come back to that in a second. So they make the movie MASH. Exact same time, same studio. Everybody's behind Patton. They don't really care about MASH. Okay? And so they're making MASH, and some say they were all stoned while they were making it. Say what you want. But it's a goofy film, right? So Robert Altman directs it. He's got some new actors in it that, not everybody's heard of. Donald Sutherland, Leah Gould, Tom Skerritt. These are all good people, I think. Oh, yeah, Sally Kellerman was in it. Robert Duvall was in it. Gary Berghoff was the only actor from the movie that made the TV series. But if you watch the film, you'll see wide shots of them in the operating tent or in the mess tent. And they're all just talking over each other. Very real, not I'm talking, you're talking. I'm talking, you're listening. I cut to your face while I'm talking for your reaction. Cut back to my face. A different type of montage-y type of piece. Very immersive in a sense, but different. And Ring Lardner, when he saw the film, wanted his name taken off up until the point he won the Oscar for the screenplay that he had written that they had completely changed in the movie. So it shows, and here's the funny part about it was, so now the studio has these Oscar-winning films, both war movies, both completely at opposite ends of the spectrum, what they are. One they supported, and the other one they didn't.
Oh, wow.
So you end up with these unusual approaches, and it's great lessons because it happens again and again and again and again and again. Everything is a cheat. Everything that you do, there's a way, if you're really clever, to do amazing things. You can do an entire movie with a monster you never see. You make the monster a ghost. You make the monster something off camera. It depends on your creativity. And when you're on a film set, the fun part to me is navigating your way through the realities of filmmaking and figuring out all these things that just the live moment make you embrace. And go back to the improv conversation I had earlier about when I was an improv or when I was an improvisational musician. Whatever comes up in the moment, you just go with. And it takes you someplace new. There was a saying when I played, there's no bad notes, just bad notes not resolved. So you can play an F sharp at a C scale, but you need to do something with it that makes it resolve itself. You need to state it in such a way so that the ear will go, because it's a C against F sharp. It's called a tritone, and it's really harsh on your ear. But if I put two other notes around it, all of a sudden it becomes very pleasant, and it will resolve very nicely for you. And filmmaking, we had this happen last night. Um, we had a scene where we had an added piece of coverage, which would have meant moving something, which is going past our curfew and all these different things. And I said, well, wait, just hold that. I looked at it, I said, why are you guys arguing? Just come over here. We'll pick that up when we're on the next shot. Don't worry about it. You don't have to do all this extra stuff and move all this equipment. It's the ability to be flexible enough to go, okay, yes, that's the problem. What's the solution? And how do we do it so that we're not sacrificing story and, in fact, sometimes enhancing it? Which is why, as a director, I love shooting rehearsals. People say, oh, it's just a rehearsal. I said, we're going to find something. And they go, well, it may not be usable. I said, that's okay. But when it's a rehearsal, you're not on your A game. Not everybody's quite ready yet. When you say, when the audience, it's like, I look at a rehearsal as kind of like Thursday night before opening night, final dress. Something's going to come out of that, and you have an audience for a dress rehearsal. You treat it like a performance. So let's treat it, and something may come out of it, and you go, oh, wow, I'm so glad we did that. We now know the timing. The laugh was wrong. The spacing was wrong. We needed to pause before, when the knife comes up to stab. Don't do it right away. Pause and take it in, and then kill, as opposed to, you know what I mean? The audience doesn't have a chance to go with you. And this, you know, this has sort of been my journey into directing, was this, you know, this discovery of story, you know, and how to express that in filmmaking. And you said, talk about two movies. Those are two movies I think that really show a spectrum of solving problems. Big budget movie and little budget movie, both having budget restrictions and both solving the problem in different ways. And both are very well rewarding for both the audience and the filmmakers.
Oh, great. So, can we come back to part 3? Because we haven't got to, like, Ryan's play date, zombies and cheerleaders,
Yeah.
and some of your stuff you do. So we're gonna come back to, part 3. So everyone, please come back to part 3 with Greg Zekowski, amazing director, giving us so many directing tips and generous information. So coming back to part 3 with Greg Zekowski.